And welcome. What's going on, Wesley? This is episode 31 of Fantasy Baseball Camp. Today is July 8th. We're heading right into the All-Star break right now for the MLB. And this is an exciting time I enjoy this time, Wes, especially now that the draft is this time. How about
Oh
you?
yeah.
What do you look for most during this
Yeah.
weekend?
You know, I hate to say it, but I kind of like the changes that the MLB has done as far as putting the draft at the same time. The futures games here, the draft combines are right around, it was about a week ago. So the things that they do now all together in 1 week, 4 5 day period, home run derby, all-star game, is actually really entertaining now. The way that it was split up previously, it just didn't work out. It didn't flow well. So I really like the changes. I like taking 5 days to do nothing but pay attention to baseball, as if we don't do that already.
Right. I was concerned that moving the draft took less attention took attention away from it since it was
Yeah.
not when it's all by itself. It kind of was a big event where now it's kind of wrapped up into an all-star weekend. But I think you kind of convinced me that no, this is now it can get that special attention since baseball's not happening. No
Yeah.
games are happening.
I have seen some tweets before just from some writers and some other people involved in baseball about the concern over moving the draft back a month. Um, that the guys now play and it takes away from their development after the draft and some other injury concerns with it. And there was something that was tweeted about you're going to move the draft back and then require the guys to be in attendance, but you're only going to have 8 draft prospects in attendance. So you're going to make it this huge event and then you're only going to have 8 people there. That's kind of concerning, like if you watch the NFL draft, there's like what, 40 people there that, are waiting to get drafted. And you're watching the guy on camera that like hasn't been drafted that we thought would go in the first round. And now it's the second round. And you're like, oh man, this is
Yeah.
suspenseful. Like that's, I think MLB could do a little better job of that, of building the suspense, because look, man, this is the dream for all these kids, and there is some suspense, there's a little anxiety there, and that's real, and I enjoy watching that. I think general baseball fans enjoy watching that. So
Well, I think there was a problem that when it was earlier, the College World Series was still going on, and so
yeah.
guys would be playing while they're drafted. After they'd get drafted, and they wouldn't sign until
Yeah.
they finished. And you'd always hate to see, you'd always see that pitcher go like 120 pitches, and I'm sure
Yeah.
the team that drafted him was sweating
I was
like,
like, oh
please
god,
stop, please
please stop
stop.
throwing him, pull him now. It's like the video of Dansby Swanson. You remember that video? Whenever he got drafted number one overall as they were winning the College World Series, and I
He was
don't
on
remember if
deck or
it.
something.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was the semis or the finals. Honestly, I don't remember. But like, basically after the game, he like goes and grabs his phone, and then all of Vanderbilt is on the field, like watching the draft as he's getting drafted number one. And yeah, I missed that a little bit, but it like the timing of it's just real weird, man.
Yeah, but the what's happening today as we're recording this, and if you're listening to this today, it's not the draft, but the futures game that we're really excited about. And Wes pulled up a great list of the futures game, and the futures game is what a minor league all star game, basically.
Yeah, it's the minor league all star game, but it goes across all levels, right? So it's not like the AAA all star game. They have a AAA all star game, a AA all star game. The futures game is across all levels, top prospects. These are the guys that are going to be the superstars in the MLB future tens, right?
It's an all prospect game rather than an all
Yeah,
star game
exactly.
almost.
So yeah, the list of guys that have played in the futures game, and here's why this is fantasy relevant for me, especially if you're in a dynasty league. All right, I'm gonna read off some of these names, and I'm not gonna read off all of them because it's pretty extensive. But here's some of the names of the guys that played in the futures game. So if you haven't paid attention to it before, I would suggest watching it. All right, Miguel Cabrera, Zach Greinke, Justin Verlander, Joey Votto, Kershaw, Harper, Trout, Wheeler, Altuve, Goldschmidt, Bumgarner, Arenado, Machado, Bogarts, Garrett Cole, Francisco Lindor. I mean, the list goes
Aaron
on and
Judge,
on.
Ronald Acuna, Tatis
Yeah,
Jr., Bobby Witt, Ali Rushman, Corbin Carroll, Gunnar Henderson, Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, if you don't pay attention to the minor leagues I mean, if you're in a dynasty, I think you kind of do pay attention to the minor leagues. But if you
yeah,
are trying to, you just started a dynasty, or you need help minor league in general, or need something to watch.
yeah.
You're trying to get into it. This is the guys to watch that are on today's Futures Game roster. You will see these guys in the major leagues at some point. You probably as starters more often than not.
Yeah, and as we've seen in the past, the guys that play in the futures game, typically you will see them at the end of the year as a call up, if not, starting the season the next year with a team. Now, some of those guys, like Lindor was on it twice, Bogarts, Machado, Arenado were on it twice. The futures game, Trout and Wheeler were on it twice. Miggy was on it twice. Burns, like you said before we started, if you play in the futures game twice, you're basically a superstar,
Yeah.
right? So
You were probably 19 and they just pushed you. You
it,
were a highly regarded guy, raised, you got drafted. And so you're
exactly, and
probably 19 playing in the first time.
there's two guys on the list that are playing that I'm paying attention to that are 19 and 20 years old. So,
Who's
man,
that?
so Jackson Churio and Junior Caminero, I will say they both are in minor system, but
Juniors for the Rays, and who was the other guy?
Jackson Churio is the outfielder for the Brewers.
Oh, okay, right.
He's in Double A. He turns 20 today, and he's in Double A, and he's killing it.
Yeah, I enjoy watching the minor leagues and minor league players. Ever since the Cubs went through the rebuild, and the Cubs minor league team was more exciting to watch
Yeah,
than the major league team, and that's where I found my love for watching minor league players, not necessarily teams, but that it's fun to then watch them and see, hey, you know what? I saw them when they were still developed, when they were 19, and now here they are 23 in the majors, and
yeah,
especially see their swing change, like Javier Baez's swing.
swing.
He had a Gary Sheffield like swing, and it worked in the minor leagues very well, but he had to adjust as he got to the higher levels.
Yeah, once they figured out how to get him out at the MLB, he had to make some adjustments. I don't know, that piece of it, man, the development piece of it is kind of the lifeblood of baseball, the scouting development like piece. Like, man, that's the lifeblood of baseball. Like, if you don't enjoy that, like, man, I don't know that it is such an advantage in fantasy, especially in dynasty leagues, knowing who those guys are before they get there. Because saying you're in a league and it's a new league, and most of those guys that you play with don't know much about the minor leagues. You know about the Jackson Holidays, the Jackson Cheerios, the Kyle Harrisons before anybody else does, and typically you get first crack at those guys, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm reading here through the list. I saw we have the Trash Pandas here right by me, and that's the Angels affiliate. And Kyron Paris, I think he was drafted last year,
Yeah,
and then immediately played in the Futures game. That doesn't sound right. I gotta look him up now to see when he was drafted. Maybe it was the year before.
yeah, it's possible. Well, I don't know. Unless you're a Garrett
Second
Cole,
round of
second round.
2019.
Okay, yeah. Typically, it's not the draft year; it's the year after that they end up making it.
Yeah, one cool thing about watching today's game too, not besides the players, is they have the automatic balls and strikes system in play.
Oh yeah, and so it was last year where the kid from the Yankees.
Volpe,
No, not Volpe, the lefty. God, I'm blanking on his name.
Peraza,
No, not Peraza. One more. Keep going.
Yankees.
Anyways,
Okay.
anyways, he was hitting, and in the futures game, and pitch was thrown. It was called a strike. He immediately challenged it, and it was a ball, and it happened in like 10 seconds.
Right, it happens fast,
and it happens really fast. And that was my first like true experience watching it and saying, "Oh, this could be good. This could be good for baseball." Because look, we love umpires, but let's be honest, they're the villains of baseball, and they get it right most of the time. But we want it to be right all the time if we can,
It's like the
or as close
opposite
to it.
of hitting. You're successful if you're getting hits 3 out of 10 times, but umpires, if they're successful 8 out of 10, that's not good
Yeah,
enough.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
So
my list of they got the top the 10 best overall prospects today that are playing, and there's the number 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 11, 16, and 18 overall top prospect. The guy I'm most excited to see watch, and I've actually watched plenty of him, is my boy Pete Carl Armstrong from the
yeah,
Cubs. He's the number 9 overall. I've seen him play at the Trash Pandas 5 games already this year. When
yeah,
they've come to town, I've made it up there at least twice. One week it was 3 times. Um, the dude's on fire lately. I think he's on his way to AAA just after the All Star break. And
yeah.
I don't know if he's.
Uh,
How many guys of these could you see in the major leagues already? How many guys are making the jump straight from
Um,
Double A?
the way that teams are promoting guys from Double A this year, it would not surprise me if someone like a Jordan Lawler made the jump. A Noel V. Marte, obviously he's in Triple A, but I could see like a Marcelo Meyer doing it. Now I'll be honest and say I haven't looked up Meyer's numbers, but I know Jordan Lawler started off slow. He's picked it up since. I could see him making the jump. Absolutely. I don't. I don't. Junior Camanero's in Double A. He just moved up to Double A, so I can't necessarily see him making the jump that quick. But James Wood, man, this guy. If you talk about another guy that's 6'7", we're talking about O'Neal Cruz, Ellie De La Cruz type. Like James Wood is another guy like that, where he's 6'7", long arms, but he's just so athletic for his size. He's a guy that I could definitely see making the jump. He's with the Nats. There's really nobody blocking him, so I could see him making the jump too. Man, he's got some pop. There's some arms on this list too that I'm real interested in seeing, and to tie this in fantasy purposes, right? Obviously we love watching the minors and things like that, but for fantasy purposes, man, these guys, like as we said in the beginning, are going to be the next superstars. I would love to watch Kyle Harrison, but we just saw a notification he had a hamstring strain. He was the guy I was going to watch on the mound, because I think I'm surprised he has not been called up yet. He's going to be in the major leagues before the year is over. It would not surprise me if 2 or 3 weeks after the All Star game he's up. But outside of him, Jacob Mizorowski, Burns, you and I were talking about it before we hopped on. MLB did a story on him when they did the draft combine last year.
Mm-hmm.
He threw a bullpen and was touching 100, 101. And man, ever since then, I've just been in love with this guy.
You've been drooling over him like,
I've been
oh
drooling
man.
over him, man. I have. I've been drooling over Mizorowski. And his stuff is just elite. I mean, it's 99 consistently. He's got a hard slider I think it grades out at a 65, and he has like a 2.1 ERA, and man, his numbers in the minor leagues are awesome right now. So if you don't know who Mizorowski is, if you have a dynasty league, a minor system, I would go look at him. I think he's one that's going to make a real big jump whenever MLB does their re-rank of the top 100.
Yeah, and you mentioned, how does that make it fantasy relevant when you are in June and July like we are right now, and you are scrambling to find an impact player
Mm-hmm.
and that's not on the waiver? These prospects that come up in the middle of the year are going to make more of an impact than any
Yeah,
guy you find on the waiver wire that's 75% owned. These are your best bets to have a regular starter who scores you 20 points. Not all of them hit. Some of these guys come up and like Jared Schuster, they had great spring training, was rated well for the Braves, and just couldn't put it together. But yet, someone like I mean, Bryce Miller was rated well, but Bryce Miller came up and was just shut down and was
Mm-hmm.
scoring for his first 4 or 5 starts, was giving people 20, 30 points.
Yeah, I mean, he only gave up one earned run, I think, in his first four starts, something like that.
Right. So even if you play in a non-keeper league, usually 10 teams, you don't really need prospects too much. 12 team
Nah.
is where it starts to get in. So like immediately, I knew Coach Shaver was big into Colton Cowser, and so the moment I think I was on the pot whenever I saw he got called up, and added him right then as soon as I saw that tweet go out, and I was like, "Sorry, sucker, I knew you'd add him."
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I'll trade him
it's
to you
him.
now.
It's him, or the moment people get called up, Tommy. I think gets Twitter notifications from
Yeah, he
different
does.
analysts. So Tommy's the one who you have to beat.
Yeah, typically, and we've talked about it, and the four of us, are the ones that probably pay attention to the minors the most. But like, I don't know, there's something about the prospects that is exciting, right? And there's so much potential there, especially in the fantasy world, because like you're saying, would you rather pick up a Julio Tehran and have him because he's been pretty decent with the Brewers, or would you rather have a Kyle Harrison that is coming up with the Giants and he's a top prospect, huge potential, great numbers in the minor leagues, right? I mean, for me personally, I would rather have Kyle Harrison because I know exactly what I'm getting with Julio Tehran, and the ceiling is not very high, right?
Right?
The
Are you
fact
gonna
that he
go ahead?
so the ceiling's not very high, right? So you don't really have much potential. And the fact that he has performed the way he has thus far, you're like, okay, well, this is going to end at some point in time for Julio Tehran. Whereas with the Kyle Harrison, the floor is pretty high, and the ceiling is also really high. So what you could get out of a Kyle Harrison is much more long term than what you could get out of a Julio Tehran.
Right. I was going to say, would you rather? I mean, half the MLB teams have guys that are going to come up and make an impact. I wouldn't say every team has a guy that you can't. There's not 32 pitchers that will come up and make will
Right.
have that floor and ceiling like that. But would you rather? I mean, if I go to our waiver wire right now, starting pitchers, it's Andrew Heaney, Julio Teheran, Kenta Maeda, Patrick Sandoval, Wade Miley, JP Sears. I mean, I'm taking Kyle Harris over any of those
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, 100%. Like I'm taking Kyle Harrison over all of them.
um, so then, what gets us then to the futures game? Then the guys how they get there is the draft, and you don't remember all the guys in the draft, but I love watching at least the first round,
Yeah.
especially the first top 10, because those guys typically you do see in the majors as stars.
Yeah. And for us, because we have a minor league system for fantasy, right? Typically the top 5 or 6 picks are normally guys that are immediately picked up when they're available. Now we have some rules around that to make sure.
We
Uh
had to.
yeah,
Thanks,
I'm not gonna
thanks,
name
Tommy.
names. It might have been me and Tommy, but
I'm guilty too. I'm guilty. I can't
I
point
know.
the finger too hard.
So you're talking about guys like a Paul Skeens or Dylan Cruz, right? And last year it was Drew Jones, Jackson Holiday, right, where they were immediately picked up because of our minor league system.
Well, we changed
Because
that the year before. It was
I know,
2021 when Jack Leiter was the moment he became available on CBS. I think Tommy picked him up at like
picked them up
3 a.m.
immediately. Yeah, I know, and you're like, all right, we got to stop this. This is ridiculous. So, but I mean, those are the guys, right? Where if you have a minor league system, hey man, like a Paul Skeens, Jack Leiter. I mean, look at Jackson Holiday. Like if you picked up Jackson Holiday last year, hey, that dude might end up getting a little bit of MLB time this year, and he will be in the MLB next year. The
If the
way that he's
Orioles
going right now,
have an injury at shortstop or third base, I think he's
yeah,
up.
he's up.
The
I would
Orioles are
agree.
fighting for it. There's no
Yeah,
reason to not see what the guy's got. If he's successful at Double A, he can be
yeah,
successful at the major league level.
yeah. And they always say, look, if you make it to Double A, you have the talent to play in the MLB. It's just a matter of the mental side of the game that you have to learn, right?
Yeah,
And so the draft is always something that I love paying attention to. And for me personally, I always like seeing the guys that go out of Alabama. That's home state, hometown, and then some of the guys that I've watched, scouted, over the year. So it's always interesting to me to see those guys, like the IMG guys that go, the Clearwater guys, the Strawberry Crest guys. There's going to be some guys drafted in my area that I like, that I watched and wrote scouting reports. So the draft is always fun for me.
Yeah, I love seeing the SEC teams take guys. Vanderbilt is one I always like to watch because
Yeah,
they're right here and they are a pitching they develop
factory.
pitching factory. Yeah,
Just a
that's the word I was
factory,
looking
man.
for. So being a former pitcher, I love watching the guys that come out of Vanderbilt. And I mean, just in 2021, they had Leiter and Rocker.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And they've kind of, Rocker's taken a little bit of a different route, and now he's hurt. He's going to have surgery, which I think he already had surgery. But
yep.
it's, man, when Rocker and Leiter were coming out, or they were at Vandy, you're like, man, this is the best 1-2 punch that I've seen in a long time, since Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer. But, dude.
Yes, let's get into that list. Do you have that list up of? So we went through and found a list of. So what's really exciting about this year's draft is for the first time ever, potentially, I got 2 players from the same school are going to go number 1 and number 2 overall in the draft.
Potentially number 1, number 2.
Potentially, stuff happens.
I'll say that, and so the reason I say that is if you saw it yesterday, there was a report that came out that said Dylan Cruz is apparently asking for $10 million, a record-breaking deal if he goes number 1.
And who has that? Who has the second pick?
For
some reason I don't have that up either.
I know. I didn't pull that up. That's on us. We should have had that up. I know Pirates are number 1, right? And then
and Pirates are going to take Skeens, right? They always take pitching.
They do.
And they develop pitching well.
I think they take Skeens. The only reason I don't think they would is if his asking price is a little too high and they want to save some money because they feel like they can get somebody else in the comp round or the second round.
You can't. I can't. That's when you don't do that. You don't do that.
You can't. But they did it with Henry.
Right? Henry Davis.
Henry Davis. Yeah, they did it with Henry Davis because he was not the number 1 guy at that time, right?
Right. It's Pittsburgh and then the Washington Nationals.
I thought it was the Nats. All right, so
and then the Detroit Tigers and then Texas Rangers are 4th.
Yeah, right.
Dude, if the Texas Rangers if for some reason Skeens dropped to the Rangers, he could come up and be a reliever for them this year.
This year, yeah, 100%. Yeah, his stuff is that good. And if you guys are seeing this and you're listening to it, if you don't listen to the MLB Pipeline podcast, that's Jonathan Mayo, Jim Callis. This is what they do all day. Those are the guys that you watch on MLB during the draft. They've consistently said that Paul Skeens is the best pitching prospect ever, at least since Strasburg.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say at least Strasburg nearly skipped the whole minor leagues.
Yeah, and Strasburg, I think, had a lot more. I don't want to say a lot more hype, but at that time, Strasburg was throwing 100, and guys weren't consistently throwing 100. But Paul
he was throwing no-hitters.
Yeah, man, Paul Skeens' numbers are absolutely insane. Like, he broke the strikeout per 9 record for the SEC and for LSU, and I think the country.
And the dude's got the frame too for it.
Yeah.
He's got. I mean, I just see the guy and I see Mark Pryor, and Mark Pryor was the guy who had the perfect frame and perfect mechanics.
The guy that he reminds me of, honestly, is Noah Syndergaard in his prime. When Syndergaard was consistently like 99 to 101.
Mm-hmm.
That's the guy that Skeens reminds me of. But man, it's an easy 98, 99. It is. It's awesome. So,
are you your GM? You're at number 1. Are you wanting Skeens or Cruz? Money don't matter.
Man, I have to take Skeens. I understand Dylan Cruz might be the best hitter that they've had in a long time, but dude, a Paul Skeens
could be a number 2 today.
Yeah, like a Paul Skeens does not come around. This is a once in a generation type player that's coming out. So I got to take Skeens. If money doesn't matter, if there's no deals to be made, if there's no money to be saved or whatever, I got to take Skeens, man. To me, he just is the best player, and as a GM, you have to take the best player if you want to be successful, right?
You have to take the best player. If you're at
Yeah,
the top in the top five, you take the best player. You don't look for. I hate that I thought that a team would pass over the
yeah,
best player to try to get a second best player.
yeah. Like say, they have like a Blake Mitchell, right, who's a catcher, um, or like let's call I'll say Arjun Namala, right, who's a kid I watched at Strawberry Crest. He's a shortstop, right? He's a high school shortstop. He's the top shortstop in the draft, ranked in the draft. He's ranked number 11, right? I'm not passing over Paul Skeens to say, hey, we need a shortstop in our system. I'm going to go draft Arjun Namala, right?
Right.
That's not happening. So if you want to be successful as the GM, you take the best player, man. That's what it got. That's what it has to come down to.
Right. So we're looking at Skeens one. Cruz is. I mean, Wyatt Langford from Florida is not nothing. Is very good.
Yeah. And
Um,
there was talk, between Cruz and Langford of like who's better. And look, there's scouts out there that prefer Langford, because of his power. He's got a little more, raw power than Dylan Cruz does. I think Cruz is a better pure hitter, but yeah, he's nothing to scoff at.
let's see. Does LSU have another guy in the top 30? No, but Florida does. Florida's got another guy in Hurston Waltrip at
Yeah,
19. I was looking to see because there's been 1 year that a school has had three guys in the top. Right here, I have the top 10. That was 2004. Philip Humber, Jeff Neiman, and Wade Townsend, who went
yeah,
3, 4, and 8 in 2004.
yeah,
That's I think that for the article I read, that was the only one that ever had three from the same school.
yeah. If Tommy White could have been drafted this year, I
That's
could
what I
see,
was looking for. Yeah.
Um, and that's another guy, man, that I saw. He was at Clearwater, down here when I saw him, and I watched him hit a absolute bomb off of Andrew Painter on a 97-mile-per-hour fastball up and in. And dude, Tommy White turned on it and hit an absolute tank. And I was like, oh God. But yeah, no, that would be really cool if you could see like Tommy White, Paul Skeens, and Dylan Cruz all going 1, 2, 3. Like that would be really awesome.
Yeah, looking back at the other guys who the schools that have had multiple, I've got 1, 2, 3, 5 others here. Vanderbilt in 2007 had David Price 1 overall, who was I think a bona fide number 1 then too, and then Casey Weathers at 8.
Yeah, yeah. Is David Price a Hall of Famer for you?
No,
It's on the edge for me, man.
with his numbers not right in front of me and just looking,
Just gut, yeah,
no,
just going off
just
gut.
gut is
He
no.
won a Cy Young, yeah. Did he win two?
I'll pull up his baseball reference if
I
and
I I don't know, man. I think he's a Hall of Famer for me.
he was drafted 19th out of high school. And then let's see, he's won Cy Young once. He's got
Okay, so
second place once before, second place twice. What's his? Do you have his career WAR?
I can find it.
I don't know. I don't have it here, but his career ERA is a 3.32. He's got 157 wins to 82 losses. Innings 2,143 innings to 2,000 strikeouts. So he's in the 2,000
Yeah,
club as of last year, probably.
yeah. He's according to the way Fangraphs calculates it is a little different. Obviously, everybody has a little nuance to WAR, but Fangraphs WAR is a 42.5 career for David Price.
I've done a little bit looking at some WAR with barrels and barrels, and I feel like that's low.
That's low. Yeah, I would agree. That's low.
But guys are getting in like who was it? Was it Scott Rowland? That was the
Yeah, Scott
controversial
Rowland that got
one.
in. It was kind of like okay, yeah. Like I mean, I didn't see him as a
That's when
Hall of
Aubrey Huff
Famer.
comes in and is like, I want to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right, right. Oh man.
So the other guys, other schools, 2011 that had multiple picks. UCLA, this was the closest. Garrett Cole
Yeah,
at 1 and Trevor Bauer 3. Both of those guys. Say what you want about Trevor Bauer. The guy's a great pitcher.
yeah.
Garrett Cole, of course, is a great pitcher. 2015, Vanderbilt had Swanson 1, and then Carson Fulmer 8. Man, Carson Fulmer really
Yeah, whatever happened
did.
to that guy, man?
He came up as a reliever for the White Sox
I
and
know.
just never happened. Sometimes
But
these guys slow play these guys too much, and it
yeah, you just look, man. You never really know how guys are going to develop, right? And looking back at that 2015 draft, Dansby went 1, and then LSU source the Bregman went 2,
Bregman
right?
too. Yep.
And would you rather at this point in time, would you see Bregman going before Swanson, knowing what you know now?
Um,
I'm putting you on the spot a little bit because Swanson is now with the Cubs, but
I think you do because Bregman has had that more pop.
yeah,
Now Swanson is the more defensive guy, but Bregman went straight to third base. He never got to
yeah,
shoot,
he
and
never
that's
played
not
short.
because of his ability. That's because the
They
Astros
had
had a shortstop.
Correa, yeah. So, yeah, if they
Um,
didn't have Correa, I could see Bregman playing shortstop right now.
yeah. So another fun thing to why looking at the and watching the top 10 at least draft. This is a guy I didn't remember was in the top 10.
Pavin Smith,
Pavin Smith went seventh
yeah,
overall from Virginia in 2017. He's now with Diamondbacks. So that kind of gives you a little bit that they don't really mess up too much when they have top overall prospects in these draft
no,
scouts. They usually don't. They're usually pretty good. It's pretty surprising. If the guys are ranked in the top 10 MLB overall or in the 100, usually, I mean, that says something. So if
yeah,
you're watching, like right now, uh, Pavin Smith with the Diamondbacks, I'd feel good about him potentially breaking out because
yeah. I
he
mean,
has the pedigree behind him.
and I'll say this for a guy like that, um, scouts are they knowingly are wrong a decent amount of times, right? Like baseball is a game of failure. As a scout, typically you're gonna have a feeling on a guy. You'll be right sometime, but you're also gonna be wrong a lot. And when you're scouting a guy like Pavin Smith, where a scout sees him and he's like, yeah, the cross checker, the organization does all of their backstory on Pavin Smith and their research and their D&D, sorry, DD, not D&D, but and you draft a Pavin Smith 7th, like that tells me that scouts organizations saw talent, they saw potential, and they saw a guy that if they're going to draft him 7th overall could be a future superstar. So that's there, right? It's there, and it's on him to kind of develop it as he goes through the minor leagues. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a guy where I would probably now seeing this and not remembering that he was 7th overall say I might give him a longer look in fantasy because there is potential and there's something there.
Right. Now, here's last question before we wrap this up. Are you more comfortable? Would you rather draft a college guy than a high school, or if the talent's there at a high schooler?
Um, for me, I guess it doesn't really matter. I know there are teams that have strategy, and there are, hey, we like college first pitchers. Here's why. We like college bats. Here's why. We like high school guys. Here's why. Um, for me, I guess it doesn't really matter whether it's a college guy or a high school guy. I guess if I'm GM and I'm putting my GM hat on, I want the most talent I can possibly get in my minor leagues. And I'm going to trust that it is a quality out of quantity type approach. I'll give you a quick quiz and ask you if you know who said that.
Quality over quantity.
No, a quality out of quantity.
So you're taking quality player rather than quantity of players.
No, 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 no. I am taking so many players that have quality that eventually we're going to
Someone's
make
gonna.
quality out of the number of players that we have.
Gotcha. Right.
That
I
was
mean,
the philosophy of Branch Rickey.
who
And
of who? Brent Rickey. Who's he?
Branch Rickey was the general manager that signed Jackie Robinson.
Oh, okay.
And it worked, right? And like that is honestly like kind of my philosophy. I would rather have, whether it's a high school guy, a college guy, whether I'm signing him, from another country, I want as much talent as I can possibly get in my minor leagues so that eventually the quality will come out of these guys, right?
That's like the Angels. We need pitching in our system. So let's draft
Which
21
21
pitchers.
pitchers, yeah. I mean, look,
And
it worked for the Braves when John Hart was the GM. The Braves did the same thing in 20, I think that was what, 2017 or 2018.
mhm.
Where they drafted like one hitter.
Yeah. I,
uh,
I feel the college guys have played at basically college is high A if you look
yeah,
at it. College is high. So if guys are booming and you can already they can come and play 6 games at high A, do well and go right to double A.
yeah,
I feel safer with the college guys, but you're there's a chance of getting those super like potential Hall of Famers already. You see it out of high
yeah,
school. The college guys, you have to get lucky, I think, to be at the top 3 pick to get those kind of guys.
yeah,
But again, stuff happened. Mookie Betts was not in the first round. Mike Trout was 27th overall. So like you just said, you never know who's going to turn out.
yeah. And it just sometimes it depends, man. Sometimes some of these guys don't have as much exposure,
And
and
some of these high schoolers just take so long
it takes so
sometimes.
long. Yeah,
They're 18 years old. And unless they're absolute studs, it's going to take them 5 years. And
yeah. I
sometimes I
mean,
don't want to wait 5 years.
you're looking at like a Walker Jenkins, a Max Clark, right? Like those are two dudes that are 18 years old. Max Clark is the best prospect to ever come out of Indiana. Like they're gonna take a few years, right? It's gonna take them 3 years at least to develop it and go through the
Right.
system.
And
Now,
so much happens in that short amount of time.
mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, and
mean,
like you don't know how they're gonna grow, right? And physically, what I mean, like they might grow a few inches, right? They might get stronger, they might not get stronger. Like,
right.
and you don't know how their body is going to develop as they get older.
And how
So
that's going to affect them.
exactly, yeah, that's why drafting high school guys is a little more risky. But um, typically, if you get it right with the high school guys, you have a lot more time frame to hold on to them because you're looking at, just as an example, right? There's 4 outfielders: Cruz, Langford, Jenkins, Clark, right? That's 2 college guys, 2 high school guys. So Clark and Jenkins are going in, they're going to be drafted, and they're going to go in at the exact same time, typically maybe a level below, right, than a
Right.
Langford and Cruz, but they're 3 years younger, right? Like they're 3 years younger. If Jenkins and Clark can come in, go to low A, and prove that they can do it, man, they might end up at high A at the exact same level as Langford and Cruz at the same time while being 3 years younger, right? So
Right.
that's the benefit for high school guys.
I feel I've it's a new thought of mine here recently of like with major league pitchers getting shut down so early. I feel like and they're protecting their guys. When I'm kind of almost thinking, you know what, stuff happens.
Yeah,
You look at Manoa. He was a stud for 2 years, and all of a sudden he fell off. Mark Pryor had injuries all his career. You kind of have to just kind of go. You can't play too much for the future. Like
yeah.
especially when the Nationals were in the playoffs and they shut down Strasburg and didn't bring him into the
Ugh.
playoffs. And now look at him. Look at Strasburg. Oh, did that protection do well for him?
Yeah, right.
Now the guy's out
Yeah,
of baseball because of his injuries. I mean,
it's
that's
always a
a little
tough thing.
freak.
It's always tough. Like you get it. Like I get why you're trying to protect a guy, and like like let's talk about it. Yuri Perez, gets sent
Yep.
down, and like, hey, we're sending him down for God knows what reason to limit his innings, to protect him for the future. Dude, he can go down, tear his UCL freaking tomorrow, and a start for Double A. Like, I don't know, man. I'm just not necessarily a fan of that. Like, if you're gonna protect him, then limit
Put him in the
his
bullpen.
innings at the MLB. Like, exactly,
Put
put
him
in
in
the
the
bullpen.
bullpen.
Now, granted, I know there's some draw to that in fantasy, so he becomes a spark for you next year. But but like that's a legitimate way of doing it. Put him in the bullpen, allow him to continue growing while limiting his innings
And facing major league hitters
and
still.
facing major league hitters. Like sending him to Double A does nothing for his development, right? The only thing that does is provide the Marlins a benefit, you know.
Right.
So
Or it provides the Phillies a benefit that they don't have to face them.
yeah, they don't have to face him.
Yeah. So, all right, we got to wrap this thing up, Wes. This has been episode 31. We went into the futures game, went into the draft. We went into some deeper level prospect talk and our draft strategies if we were GMs. Hey, if anyone needs an assistant to the GM, you got two right here, baby.
Open for opportunities.
One of those special assistants that, like from Moneyball, Peter.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Pete.
That's
hey,
Pete.
Right here, baby. Right here.
Hey, man, I'm in Tampa. I got a great place to scout and go look at players, man.
Yeah, and then the spring training and all the complex leagues there.
Yeah.
You're there, baby.
I love it.
So, all right, this has been episode 31. I hope you enjoyed the talk, and I hope this invigorates a little bit of minor league and prospect love for anybody listening. It's fun to watch these kids come up and grow, and yeah, that's the Futures game is today. Draft is tomorrow. Today's July 8th.
Yeah. Futures game is tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. Unfortunately, I'm not going to watch it. We're going to be at the
I'm so excited. I'm not going to
watch it. No. I got to watch the replay of it because we're going to Braves Rays tonight. We're seeing Strider and Taj. So I'll hopefully tweet some things out on that.
Yeah, get some snap some pics or something. So, all right, this has been episode 31, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.